The following is a CUNY TV special presentation.
My name is Jeremy Travis, and I'm the president of John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Thank you, Mayor. And it's a particular privilege and honor this morning to welcome you on behalf of the Chancellor of the University, Matthew Goldstein, to the new John Jay College. Soon after I returned to New York, now 8 years ago, Jack Rudin offered to convene a breakfast here at John Jay with Chief Judge Judith Kaye, Police Commissioner Ray Kelly, Manhattan DA Robert Morgenthau, several other criminal justice leaders, because Jack wanted to talk about ways to put the intellectual resources of this college to the disposal of those agencies. And of course, how could they say no to Jack Rudin? And ever since then, with generous financial support from the Rudin family, John Jay faculty and students have been working with police, probation, courts, prosecutors, juvenile justice agencies to help them tackle the tough problems that they face. And in a moment that speaks volumes about Jack and about the Rudin family, Jack insisted that this initiative be called the Lewis and Jack Rudin Partnership. He told me that he always did projects with his brother, and this one should be no exception. So being here with Bill Rudin this morning and watching the remarkable leadership that he's providing to ABNY brings to mind the contributions that the Rudin family has made to the city and to this college, and gives me a public opportunity to say thank you publicly before friends and colleagues to the Rudin family on behalf of John Jay. It is also fitting that Deputy Mayor Steele is the featured speaker this morning. His economic development portfolio speaks directly to the mission of the City University of New York, which is to prepare the next generation for participation in a rapidly changing workforce in our city. So I know that Matthew Goldstein and all of the presidents at the City University of New York appreciate the Deputy Mayor's forceful advocacy for the role of universities as engines for our economic future. As you may know, under Chancellor Goldstein's leadership, CUNY is undergoing a remarkable renaissance, a renaissance that places this public university in a distinct place in the national story as to what's happening with public universities around the country. So this renaissance is both academic and architectural. New buildings are planned or under construction in every borough of the city. And in fact, here's a takeaway fact for you. CUNY construction projects now account for a quarter of all construction projects underway in New York City today. It's a remarkable statement. And for that, we should thank our legislative leaders who have seen the wisdom of allowing for the bonding of these projects, and thank our elected officials here in the city as well for keeping CUNY on a trajectory of excellence. So the transformation of our campus life reinforces the academic transformation of John Jay to a rigorous, serious liberal arts senior college within the City University of New York. We are grateful to the elected officials, the leaders of the city and the state who made this possible. We are indebted to all of you for the transformation of this college and for the transformation and the renaissance at CUNY. So I hope you enjoy the new John Jay. Thank you for bringing ABNY to our college, and after the breakfast, we'll be leading a tour out to the Jaywalk, and you'll see why it's interesting that John Jay has now purchased its first ever lawnmower. Thank you.
Making New York City a safe and livable city has always been at the top of ABNY's agenda for the past 40 years. And John Jay has always played a crucial role in those efforts and in producing the leaders of the future in criminal justice. As we just heard, my family has been very much involved with this institution, and we're very proud of that fact. It is now my pleasure to introduce New York City's Deputy Mayor for Economic Development, Bob Steele. Bob was named Deputy Mayor in 2010, and in this capacity is responsible for the Bloomberg administration's 5-borough economic development strategy and job creation efforts. He spearheads the administration's major development projects, including Lower Manhattan, Willets Point, Hunters Point South, Coney Island, the South Bronx, and Hudson Yards. Bob also oversees several agencies, including the Department of Housing and Preservation and Development, the Department of City Planning, the Department of Small Business Services, NYC and Company, New York City Economic Development Agency. Bob also serves as the chair of the Brooklyn Bridge Board of Directors and vice chair of the Hudson River Park Trust. Deputy Mayor, we welcome you back to Abney, and we are eager to hear an update on the administrator's economic diversification and transformation agenda, as well as your efforts to ensure New York City's long-term economic competitiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Deputy Mayor Bob Steele.
This morning, for me, it's a pleasure to be able to talk to you about the Bloomberg administration's efforts to strengthen New York City's economic competitiveness. First, I want to lay out some steps we're taking to bolster the business climate. Second, I want to speak about just some of the mayor's new initiatives to encourage economic diversification and transformation that we believe will be critical to New York's future success, including investments in talent and broadband infrastructure. Lastly, before we leave, recognizing we can't cover everything in detail, we want to put some markers down for you in public to challenge ourselves with regard to the other things that we're going to be focused on in the time ahead in the administration. So let's jump in. The first thing you have to say when you start to talk about economic development and conditions in New York City is that there's still too many people suffering and there's inadequate work. And I believe that the current statistics that people describe as the standard benchmarks actually understate the severity and the significance of the problem. It's worse than the headline numbers. Unemployment and underemployment are spreading. It's focused on certain areas, and we have to be committed to doing everything we can to create jobs to attack this issue. Now, having said that, we have made progress, and we're committed to doing even more. Since the start of the recession, New York has recovered more than 200% of the jobs it has lost. The rest of this country has recovered only 40%. As I said, the official unemployment rate has remained persistently and unacceptably high despite this growth, in part for a good reason, and that is that people are returning to the workforce and looking for jobs again. But we accept we have much to do and are committed to making sure that we do a good job with regard to this issue. Now, the success we've had hasn't been as a result of an accident. Under the leadership of Mayor Bloomberg, the city has pursued a comprehensive 5-borough strategy for economic development that's focused on 4 key pillars that we continually try to keep in mind. The first is improving quality of life, with investments in public safety, parks, sanitation, clean water, culture, and schools under the leadership of my fellow deputy mayors and the talented commissioners of our city, leaders like Commissioner Ray Kelly and Chancellor Dennis Walcott. The second pillar that we continually emphasize is creating a pro-business environment by making it clear to everyone who's here and would like to be here that New York City is open for business and taking a balanced approach to taxes, spending, and regulation. The third foundational aspect is what we call investing in the future. With major redevelopment initiatives like Lower Manhattan, downtown Brooklyn, and Long Island City, and investments in transportation like the 7-line extension, the East River Ferry, and the 5-borough taxi plan spearheaded by TLC Commissioner David Yaskey, and the City Bikes program being led so ably by DOT Commissioner Jeanette Sada-Khan. And the fourth and final pillar is the idea that we have to be committed to fostering innovation and economic transportation for New York City. We're trying to think about game-changing initiatives like the Applied Sciences and Engineering campus on Roosevelt Island and in downtown Brooklyn, and the expansion of the film and television industry, which has added more than 300,000 jobs in the last decade. Together, these 4 pillars are the strong foundation for growth we believe for decades ahead. The local business climate does matter. We believe we've made significant progress in reforming the city's bureaucracy, but we can and must do more. Too often, government organizes its activities in a way that's most natural and convenient for itself and not for the stakeholders. For example, New York City issues 300 business-related licenses and permits, but less than a quarter of them can be applied for online. Truth be told, we have made some significant progress in streamlining interaction with businesses, with notable successes like the New Business Acceleration Team and NYC Development Hub hosted by the Buildings Department. But the mayor has decided and instructed us that we need to broaden and accelerate these efforts to accelerate our business. And that's why the mayor is announcing today that he's appointed Tocumbo Shobowala to be the city's first Chief Business Operations Officer, with the sole mission of making government more responsive and efficient in dealing with business customers. Tocumbo brings an excellent mix of public and private sector experience to this task. A veteran of the Bloomberg administration, he served as mine and my predecessor's chief of staff, and prior to that was the chief operating officer of EDC. We've already reached out to best-in-class customer service businesses from within the city, including Union Square Hospitality Group and Dwayne Reed and others, to learn from them about their best operational practices in serving diverse customers in a first-class way. As part of this, we're committing to you to several key goals, including, by the end of this year, we will ensure that all applications that I just mentioned are available online for download, so that business owners don't even have to come to a city office to pick them up. Within 1 year, we will increase by more than 35% the volume of applications and renewals that can be submitted online, including some of the most frequently used applications, like those for food service establishments and renewals of taxi medallions. And over the next year, business owners will be able to check the status of several key items, including licenses being processed online, whether inspections have been passed, and whether permits have been actually issued. By the end of this calendar year, businesses taking advantage of our New Business Acceleration Team, or NBAT, which helps get new restaurants open faster, will be able to follow the status of their project directly online. Within 1 year, businesses will be able to pay for all license renewals online, as opposing to have to travel to visit the city at a place convenient for the city. By the end of the administration, we will ensure that 80% of new business applications and renewals are possible online. And we will also make it easier for businesses to know how to comply with the licensing and permitting processes by providing new guides that depict a roadmap for opening businesses. We'll build on the information compiled on NYC Business Express by offering assistance in various media, such as working with Catherine Oliver and the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment to pilot online videos that will show entrepreneurs just how to comply with all of our regulations. That's why City Planning Commissioner Amanda Burden has led an effort that we're announcing this morning called Blueprint, to streamline the pre-certification process, which is the time prior to ULURP, when city planning works with applicants to make sure their applications are technically complete to enter public review. The goal of this initiative is to make this process faster, more efficient, and more predictable without sacrificing the standards that city's planning is responsible for maintaining. We believe that Blueprint will save developers as much as $100 million every year in soft and carrying cost. These improvements will also save time and money for the city and get projects built faster, which means onto the tax rolls more quickly. Blueprint benefited from a unique partnership with MetLife, which made 2 of its senior professionals available to the city pro bono to assist with this project, and I'd like to thank MetLife for their efforts on this project as well. Under Mayor Bloomberg's leadership, the city has experienced a commercial renaissance in neighborhoods in all 5 boroughs. In the last 10 years, the number of business improvement districts, or BIDs, has expanded by 23 to a nation-high number of 67 BIDs. Of those 23 new BIDs, 20 are located outside Manhattan, consistent with the mayor's 5-borough strategy. Today, BIDs are investing more than $100 million every year of their own money in safety, sanitation, and efforts for business attraction. To encourage further BID innovation, this morning we're announcing 2 new programs. The first, the bid challenge. Last week, you may have read, Bloomberg Philanthropies launched a program called the Mayor's Challenge for cities across the country, and now we're taking this play and doing the same thing for bids across our city. Bids will be able to apply for seed funding for new initiatives to make their neighborhoods better and attract jobs and investment. This competitive process, to be run by SBS Commissioner Rob Walsh and his team, as well as a panel of leaders from the private and nonprofit sectors, will make awards to up to 5 innovations that we hope then can set an example that other bids will be able to follow. As we know, bids have historically been the strongest in the larger commercial districts, places like Union Square, Times Square, and downtown Brooklyn. But for smaller neighborhoods, they've been challenged. They could benefit from the bid model as well, but their challenges related to the economic model. So today, we're announcing that we will make it easier for smaller neighborhoods to take advantage of the benefit of bids also, with a new cost-sharing bid model. Today, smaller bids spend as much as 45% of their budget on administrative costs, compared to just 15% for the larger bids. Under this new model, Bid Express, commercial corridors that are smaller than typical bid neighborhoods and smaller existing bids will be able to access essential central services within SBS that will allow them to share overhead expenses so that more of their resources can be invested directly in their neighborhoods and their efforts. Strengthening New York City's business environment is also a critical precondition to one of Mayor Bloomberg's other economic development ambitions that I want to spend a few minutes on now, and that is fostering innovation and economic transformation. From the very beginning of this administration, Mayor Bloomberg has focused on diversifying New York City's economy. Already, New York City's economy is more diverse than many people realize, with 4 different sectors that employ more than 300,000 people and 9 sectors that employ more than 100,000. Under Mayor Bloomberg's leadership, attracting a record 50.5 million tourists has generated significant job growth. More than 330,000 New Yorkers are now employed in tourism-related jobs. In 2011, a record number of television pilots filmed in New York City, and that industry also now employs hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers in industries as diverse as acting, food service, and carpentry. But perhaps the most successful example of the mayor's economic diversification and transformation agenda is what's taking place in New York City's tech and entrepreneurial sectors. A recent report by the Center for an Urban Future, sponsored by ABNY, highlights the fact that New York City was the only major tech center to experience growth in venture capital investment between 2007 and 2011. Nearly 500 startups in New York City have received venture capital funding since 2007, and employment in the tech sector has grown by more than 30%. This change is impacting large businesses as well as companies build out their technology platforms right here in New York City, which will add thousands of tech jobs, not just at startups, but at large established companies as well. We all want to make New York City the destination of choice for entrepreneurs from around the 5 boroughs and from around the world. The most ambitious and publicized element of the mayor's economic transformation agenda is, of course, the applied science campuses that will be built on Roosevelt Island by Cornell and the Technion, and in downtown Brooklyn by NYU, with a consortium of schools from around the world. These projects have the potential, we believe, to transform New York City's economy. This isn't just about winning Nobel Prizes, it's about economic development. And these campuses will create tens of thousands of jobs, first to build the campuses, second to run the campuses, and thirdly, with the companies that we believe will emerge from the research at these schools. And the good news is that we're continuing to work with both Columbia and Carnegie Mellon on initiatives and proposals that we hope will allow for there to be even more to come with regard to the mayor's applied science initiative. And so just as Aviation High School was founded in Queens in 1936, at the dawn of the jet age, to prepare generations of New Yorkers for careers in the aviation industry. The aviation industry then, taking root, at 2 nearby airports cropping up, one at an amusement park that became Curtis Field, and the other at the golf course that later became Idlewild and then Kennedy, we're trying to think the same way to position students for the information age. In April, Mayor Bloomberg and Chancellor Dennis Walcott announced the creation of the Academy for Software Engineering in the heart of the Flatiron Tech District. Supported by private contributions, including an anchor gift from venture capitalist Fred Wilson and support from ABNY, this high school will have a specialized software engineering curriculum and close connections to the tech sector, including internships and mentorships, which are so important for getting a foot on the first rung. This school will open in the coming fall. So while New York City has universally recognized momentum in tech, there's one major challenge that we have to report to you that we need to tackle head on. We haven't done that yet, and now's the time to draw the line in the sand. By almost every metric, New York City has a broadband infrastructure deficit, a deficit that we believe will create a long-term competitive disadvantage if we don't act now. While telecom companies have invested heavily in cable and fiber, there's still too many businesses that struggle to get high-speed, reliable service. We've heard from businesses throughout New York City, including knowledgeable members of the Mayor's Council on Technology Innovation, like Lawrence Linehan, who's here this morning, that their ability to download, and as you know, even more importantly, to upload large quantities of data is becoming a factor that's limiting their growth. We want to capitalize on the momentum in tech and ensure that our broadband infrastructure encourages growth as opposed to discourages. It's the transportation infrastructure of the modern age and a basic necessity, not just for tech businesses, but for every business, including the important ones that are already here in New York. While 99.9% of New York City's businesses and homes have access to broadband connections, only 45% of buildings have access to state-of-the-art fiber connections. So just as in the energy and telecom sector, the public sector cannot and should not finance all the necessary infrastructure investments. So this morning, in partnership with Speaker Quinn and the City Council, we're announcing a suite of initiatives that we will believe will harness market dynamics and increase transparency to incentivize the private sector to expand New York's broadband infrastructure. The first is called Connect NYC, a partnership with the private sector to build out connectivity for commercial and industrial buildings. Small and medium-sized businesses, including industrial businesses, in unwired or underwired buildings will be able to apply for free, fast-track fiber installations through a process that will assess how additional connectivity would help their business grow. We're in advanced discussions with Time Warner about partnering on this project, which could help us reach our goal of wiring several hundred additional buildings in New York City for high-speed internet. The second initiative is called Wired NYC, and we'll create a building certification program that evaluates a building's broadband infrastructure. So think about the idea of LEED for broadband to encourage and accelerate deployment of leading broadband technologies. Business will be able to use a building's rating to inform their location decisions and create a transparent mechanism by which landlords can highlight the investments that they've made in their properties. Wired NYC will be structured in partnership with both the real estate industry, represented by Rudin Management and several other firms, as well as the tech sector. Wired NYC will have a goal of cataloging and ranking 200 commercial office buildings in the next 2 years. You may have seen the Made in New York digital jobs map recently released by the Mayor and Chief Digital Officer Rachel Stern, who, by the way, has 33,000 followers on Twitter now, about 100 times as many as me. But building on that successful model of filling knowledge gaps in the market, Wired NYC will also feed into a third initiative, the NYC Broadband Connect Map. The Broadband Connect Map, something like Yelp for broadband, will be a crowdsourced, dynamic website where businesses can share their experiences with internet access specific to a particular location, which will help them address some of the information asymmetries in the market. This new resource for businesses will be launched later this year by the Economic Development Corporation. Lack of access to technology is not just an issue for businesses. It impacts all New Yorkers. So we're also working with partners in the tech sector to address the digital divide within the city. Another initiative we're rolling out, Citizen Connect, will bring the city's tech developers and service organizations in a competition akin to the EDC quite successful Big Apps model to create new apps that will connect New Yorkers with workforce development opportunities, job listings, and worker support programs like childcare, healthcare, and transportation. The final initiative we're announcing to you this morning is called Broadband Express. To prioritize broadband deployment, the city, under the leadership of Deputy Mayor Kaz Holloway and DeWitt Commissioner and Chief Infrastructure Innovation Officer Rahul Merchant, in partnership with the city's Department of Transportation, will begin a process of simplifying operational issues as well as regulatory hurdles for Internet Service Providers, or ISPs. The city will create a city point person for ISP permitting as well as other related issues. Now, none of these issues alone will catapult New York City to where we need to be in terms of broadband infrastructure. But taken together, we believe this package of initiatives represents a commitment by our administration to lay the foundation for the economic development that enhanced broadband is required to facilitate. This morning, I've tried to focus on a few initiatives with regard to two of the foundational aspects of our plans. But we also want to focus on other priorities with the city. And so in closing, as I said I would, let me put markers down for other things that the mayor's instructed us to be thinking about and focused on as we sprint for the finish line. We're continuing to work to finalize an agreement to redevelop the Hunts Point Terminal Produce Market. We're developing a plan to encourage investment and development in the world's largest central business district, East Midtown, where the average age of the commercial building stock is now 72 years old. We will complete the mayor's historic new housing marketplace plan, being led by Commissioner of HPD Matt Wambua and HDC President Mark Yar, which will create enough housing for 500,000 New Yorkers by 2014. We will roll out a new program to avoid the headache of having your car towed with the introduction of a booting pilot program led by Department of Finance Commissioner David Frankel. We're working with NYCHA and Chairman John Rhea to address the long-standing operational and capital deficits of NYCHA, included by maximizing the value of NYCHA's real estate portfolio and strengthen the financial health of the city's more than 170,008 units of public housing in NYCHA, which are the home to 500,000 of our fellow citizens. We'll continue to focus on development projects that will bring jobs and investments to neighborhoods throughout the 5 boroughs, including Kingsbridge Armory in the Bronx, Willis Point in Queens, the BAM Cultural District in Brooklyn, Seward Park in Manhattan, and Homeport in Staten Island, where I'm pleased to announce we'll begin the roadway construction that will literally pave the way for the future in Staten Island of a new mixed-use commercial and residential community. Because of all the progress we've made, for all the good things we mentioned, there's still lots of work to be done to keep New York City on the front foot. If New York City wants to outperform in the information age, the same way we did in the industrial age, we need to keep investing in infrastructure and the talent and the overall business environment that we'll need to win in the 21st century. Thank you again to Bill Rudin and Abney for organizing this morning's breakfast. Thanks to CUNY and John Jay for hosting us. And thanks for all of you for being here first thing in the morning.
Bob, thank you for your insightful comments and looking to the future.